Kennedy Chandler came out of high school as the number 1 ranked point guard prospect nationally and the number 10 prospect overall per Rivals.com. He committed to Tennessee in August of 2020 and played out his freshman year for the Volunteers during the 2021-22 season. Chandler had a nice season at Tennessee, leading the team in points and assists while leading the team to an eventual upset loss in the second round of the NCAA tournament to the 11th-seeded Michigan Wolverines. Despite the lackluster end of the season, Chandler racked up a myriad of postseason awards. Chandler made both All-SEC and All-SEC freshman teams and was also named SEC Tournament MVP. With a successful freshman season now in the rearview mirror, Chandler is now looking at possibly being the first point guard taken in the 2022 NBA draft, depending on how teams feel about Ty Washington. But either way, Chandler should hear his name called sometime during the first round of the upcoming draft. The first strength for Chandler is how fast and explosive he is as an athlete. There are a lot of great athletes in this draft, but it would be hard for me to believe there are any prospects that are faster than Chandler. He is an absolute blur on the court with or without the ball in his hands. One move he seems to like is if the other team makes a shot, he quickly gets up court and just blows by everybody before the defense can get set. This typically gives him an opportunity to finish at the basket or draw a foul. But in addition to just this niche play that shows off his pure speed, he also has an explosive first step on drives. In football, you hear about how the best running backs are able to hit the hole as soon as it opens. This is sort of how Chandler plays while driving to the basket. If the defense gives him a sliver of daylight, he explodes through the hole and is finishing at the basket. I think Chandler catches defenders off guard at times both with his speed and how sudden he is. You make one wrong move as a defender and he's blowing by you. I'm interested to see how Chandler's speed and explosiveness play in the NBA. On one hand, defenders are far more athletic as a whole in the NBA than in college, but on the other hand, the paint is usually much less clogged in the NBA than in college. If Chandler is able to carry over his ability to explode into the lane into the NBA, he could be a very fun offensive player to watch. Another strength for Chandler is his intensity on the defensive end. Chandler is a bit small for a high-level basketball player at 6 foot. At that height, it would be easy for Chandler to just accept that almost everyone is taller than him and he's going to have a hard time stopping guys on defense. But instead, Chandler is very active on the defensive end and makes life as difficult as possible for the offense. Chandler is aggressive on the ball. He uses his quickness to stay in front of offensive players and force them to go through his chest if they want to score at the basket. He also has a good-sized wingspan at 6'5" that he uses to rack up deflections and steals. Steals aren't always a great indicator of good defense, but in Chandler's case he's just active off the ball and keeps his arms in the passing and driving lanes to disrupt the offense. Chandler might not ever be an all-NBA defender, but he looks like a guy that should be able to hold his own on the defensive end. One final strength for Chandler is playmaking. Chandler has great court vision and also throws accurate passes on the move. He's skilled at handling the ball in the pick and roll and playmaking out of it. In college, Chandler averaged 4.7 assists per game against 2.5 turnovers per game, and we could see that ratio improve at the NBA level. Tennessee didn't have a ton of high-level offensive options outside of Chandler to pay off the plays he was able to create. In the NBA, Chandler will likely have an athletic big man to work with in the pick and roll, and also will be able to get into the lane and kick out to good shooters on the perimeter. Chandler might not be a point guard as a playmaker, but he has the ability to be a good starting level point guard in the NBA. One weakness for Chandler is that he is simply smaller than the majority of NBA players. This weakness is obviously something that is beyond his control, but the fact of the matter is Chandler doesn't match up well against many NBA players from a size perspective. While he does have a solid wingspan and is a pest on the defensive end, bigger players can score over him around the basket and shoot over him on the perimeter. On the defensive end, he is explosive as an athlete and has a little bit of a floater he will break out, but I think there definitely could be an adjustment period for Chandler when it comes to scoring around the basket in the NBA. From time to time, you'll see a smaller player that's able to score efficiently around the basket. With Chandler's speed and athleticism, I could see this being possible for him, but being only 6 foot will definitely be a challenging thing for Chandler to overcome when it comes to scoring around the basket. Another weakness for Chandler is that he can be streaky as a shooter. Chandler finished the season shooting 38% from 3, which is a very respectable number, but that number was propped up by some big performances and a hot streak to end the season. Over a 24-game stretch from December through February, Chandler shot just 28% from 3 before getting hot in March and making 57% of his threes. One could look at this and say it's encouraging that Chandler finished strong against good competition in the conference tournament and the NCAA tournament. I just think it's concerning to see that he struggled for such a large chunk of the season. Another reason I'm somewhat concerned for his shooting is he had some struggles at the free throw line. Chandler shot 61% from the free throw line on 99 attempts over the course of the season, and actually shot just 56% after starting the season 10 for 10. Free throws aren't always a perfect indicator of shooting ability, but it does give us some insight into a player's shooting touch. Chandler likes to get to the basket as much as possible, but if he wants to reach his ceiling as an offensive player, he will have to prove that he can be a consistent shooter. This first clip shows off some of Chandler's speed and explosiveness. The play starts with Chandler getting a screen near the top of the arc. He slows down coming over the screen and reads the two defenders. He sees his defender take a step up and the big man stay with the roller. Chandler sees a gap in the defense and explodes down the lane past 4 different defenders and finishes the layup at the basket. This ability to get to top speed in one step will be great for Chandler's ability to get good looks around the basket at the NBA level. This next clip gives us a look at Chandler's intensity on the defensive end of the floor. The play starts with Chandler trying to deny the inbound pass on the perimeter. It looks like the UNC player might have gotten away with a push-off on Chandler and cuts to the basket. A lot of players would have been unable or unwilling to try to stay with this play, but Chandler hustles to get back into the play and flies in to block the shot at the basket. While this isn't a play we will likely see Chandler make regularly, it does display just how hard he plays on the defensive end. This final clip displays how Chandler's size can limit him at times. Chandler gets a screen at the top of the arc and LSU switches the action. Chandler then takes a couple dribbles in and, thinking he has enough space, fires up a shot. The defender elevates and gets a piece of the shot. At the NBA level, players only get bigger and more athletic, so Chandler will have to make the adjustment to compensate for being relatively undersized. Kennedy Chandler has a chance at being the first true point guard taken in the 2022 NBA draft. His combination of speed, athleticism, defensive intensity, and playmaking gives him some good upside overall as an NBA point guard. If Chandler was able to prove himself a consistent scoring threat, he could be a very good two-way point guard. The concern would be that Chandler can't score quite as efficiently around the basket at the NBA level, and defenses don't take him very seriously as a shooter. If this were to be the case, Chandler would likely top out as a backup point guard or a low-level starting point guard. Chandler's defense and playmaking gives him a good floor to build off of, but the shooting will be what determines how successful he can be as a player. My NBA comp for Kennedy Chandler is Kyle Lowry. Chandler is a better athlete than Lowry, but both are shorter point guards that can play solid defense and create some nice plays with their passing. I think at his best, Chandler could be a borderline all-star type player like Lowry has been throughout his career.